So basically, if you have n people to share between k choices, then you can be certain that at least n over k rounded up to the nearest whole number, because that's just like adding 1, people will have the same choice. So as an example, so for this, I want you to realise that this is the number of choices, and basically if you've got the m, if you take the m and you take 1 away from it, that is how much is in each box. Okay, and the number of boxes is k, so there's always going to be k boxes. So if you have the at least part and you take 1 away and you times by k, that will be how many are equally shared amongst the boxes. And then all you have to add is 1 more, and then you can be certain that each box will be filled. But as a rule, n over k, will be less than, like if you did that and then you rounded it up, then that will equal like what your at least is, or your m. Or if you did the n over k, it has to be less than the at least. Okay, and further on that, if you did the n over k and you rounded down, like you just chop the decimal and you add 1, that will also give you what your m is. So it's just a matter really of sharing. So if you have like 500 people and they make 200 choices, then you can be certain that at least m of them would make the same choice. Okay, so when you're doing that, so if you get the 500 and use this rule, divided by the 200, so you go 500 divided by 200, you get 2.5. So you can round down and get 2, and then you add 1, and there would be at least 3 with the same choice. So that would be your m. Okay, so m would have to equal 3. Alternatively, you could go the 2.5 and just, no matter whether it's 5 or greater, whatever that is, you just have to go to the next whole number, which is 3, and there would be at least 3 people who make the same choice. And if you just apply that rule each time, you can work out any of these questions. Okay, so there are n people placed in 8 levels of karate. Okay, so n is like your pigeons or your people, and 8 levels, that's your k, or that's your choices. So we've got 8 boxes. So there are n people placed in these. There are at least 29 people. So 29, if you take it a 1, that means there would have to be 28 in each of those boxes. 28 shared out each of those boxes, with 1 left over to make the 29. So one of those would have 28 plus 1 is 29. So 28 times 8. So that would be 28 times 8. You end up with 224. 224, add 1, 225. So there'd have to be n equals 225. Because when you think about it, n over 8 has to equal, n over 8, we want at least 29 people. So if we were looking at that rule, that would have to equal 29 would be 28 plus the 1, because it's been rounded off. So 29 minus 1 is 28. So 28 times 8 is 224. So if you had one more, that would guarantee that there'd be at least 9, not 8 in each thing, which would be 220. The n on 8 would have to be less than 29. So the n on 8 would have to be less than 29. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Let's look at this one here. So a survey of 450 people, so that's your n. There are at least 35 who'd prefer the same type of takeaway. So if you did 35 minus 1, you get the 34. And that's how many are in each of, like, your pigeonholes. There's K of them. I don't know what they are. So that means if we're looking at this, how many different types, so how many choices? So if you did 34 times the K, 34 times the K, and then you added 1, that should give you your 450 or be less than your 400. So to guarantee that this would happen, that would be 34K would have to be less than 449. So K would have to be less than 449 divided by 34, which is 13.2. So if I had K equals 13, because that's the first one less than that, see 13 times 34 plus 1, 13 times 34 plus 1 will equal 443, which is less than 450. So the number of choices would have to be 13 choices to guarantee this happen. So you try 14. If you did 14 choices times the 34, 14 times the 34 in each thing, you get 476 plus 1 is 477. So plus 1. You see that that is too big because that is bigger than 450. So once you divide it by that, the first value of K that is less than 13.2 is 13. So if you take that one, there must be 13 choices to guarantee that this happens. Okay, so now let's look at the next one. A group of friends is split up into different groups, with some going to the cinema. So if we look at this, some are going to the cinema, some are going to a concert, and others are going to dinner. So we've got 3 choices here. How many friends must you select to guarantee that at least 3 of them went to the same event? So if you take 1 away from that, that means you put 2 going to each of these events. So 2, that's 2 lots of 3, and you just got to add 1 more. The 7th person, if you chose 7 of them, then you would be guaranteed that at least 3 would be going to one of those events.